In the village of Umuakpa, where the rain fell softly and the palm trees swayed to the rhythm of the wind, there lived a girl whose name meant Mother Returns. Nena was born under a full moon, and the elders said her soul was old, too old for her tiny hands and fragile smile. Her father, Ogbuefi Amici, was the village wrestler, strong, respected and kind. He would hoist her on his broad shoulders as they walked to the market, and she would sing. Ezigbo na mo. My father is the sun. He shines when I cry. And dances when I laugh. Her mother, Ifema, sold cassava and peppers by the roadside, her laughter always ringing like metal gongs during festivals. Nena was the joy between them, the light in the midst of chores, the melody in their quiet home. But peace, like harmattan dust, never stays long in the eyes of children. One rainy season, Ogbuefi Amici went hunting in the forest and never returned. They found his machete beside a fallen tree, but not his body. The village declared him gone, and grief settled in like a stubborn guest. Ifema became quiet. Her eyes stayed far away. And in his place came Okoli, Amici's younger brother, to help the widow and care for the child. Okoli smiled often, but his eyes never matched his lips. He brought gifts, plantain chips, mangoes, and strange city sweets that stuck to your teeth. He called Nena Nwunyam Nwataka, my little wife. It sounded like a joke, until it wasn't. The first time it happened, it was night. The moon was full again, like on her birthday. Her mother was asleep in the other room. Okoli crept in, his breath smelling of palm wine, and touched her in ways that made her stomach twist, and her soul run far. Don't cry, he whispered, you're special to me. If you tell anyone, your mama will die. She was 8. She didn't want her mother to die. So, she didn't speak. It happened again. And again. And soon, the moon became her enemy. She stopped singing. She stopped skipping by the stream. She started to hide, under her mother's wrapper, behind the woodpile, in her own skin. When the village children played Aja Na Muo, the spirit and the clay, she stood at the edge, watching but never joining. Her voice, once as loud as the talking drum, became a whisper trapped inside her chest. Years passed like dry leaves swept under the wind. They say in Umuakpa that when a child plays with fire, she either learns or burns. But no one speaks of the child who keeps returning to the flames, not because she wants to, but because the fire has made a home in her. By the time Nena turned 15, her body had grown like yam vines in the rainy season, curving, stretching, blooming. But her soul, bruised and silent, was still that 8-year-old girl hiding in a hut corner. Okoli had moved away to the city after a bitter quarrel with Ifema, who never knew the truth. Nena had started bleeding the woman's blood, and the dreams came more often, dark, confusing, filled with heat and guilt. Her mother chalked it up to puberty, but Nena knew something had been planted in her, something no one could see, but she could feel, always. When the secondary school teacher, Mr. Obasi, touched her shoulder during literature class, she didn't flinch. She smiled. When the senior prefect sent her notes with hearts and promises of marriage, she responded, in person, under the mango tree after prep. It started with curiosity. Then came hunger. Then came a void too wide to fill. Boys, older men, strangers, she gave them parts of her like they were coins in an offering basket. Her body became a loud room her soul could not silence. And after every touch, she washed her hands like Pilate, but the shame remained. She had learned to fake smiles, laugh at dirty jokes, wear short skirts to silence questions, and hold back tears in church. But inside, she felt like a cracked pot, leaking, breaking, never whole. Her mother still prayed, still sang old hymns while frying akara in the morning, never knowing her daughter was drowning. You are too wild, one teacher said. She's loose, another whispered. Don't marry her, the boys warned each other. She's broken goods, one girl spat. Nena heard them all. But one afternoon, as the clouds gathered over the school compound, she met someone different. His name was Karchi. He was not like the others. Karchi was not born in Umuakpa. His father, a traveling civil engineer, brought the family to the village when Karchi was 16. With thick glasses and a quiet confidence, he stood out. He didn't speak unless he had to, and when he did, his words felt like fresh rain on dusty feet, rare, needed. Nena noticed him first, during the morning assembly. He stood with his hands behind his back, reciting the national anthem like it meant something. There was something about his silence that screamed safety. She didn't think he noticed her. Girls like her didn't get boys like him, not the clean ones, not the kind ones. But he did. He noticed how she walked with her head high, but her eyes scanned every shadow. He noticed how she laughed louder than necessary, as though drowning something out. He noticed how she always stood near exits, in church, in class, even during group assignments. One afternoon, he found her crying behind the library. She wiped her face quickly and hissed. "What are you looking at?" "Pain," he said. "And beauty." She scoffed. "You don't know me." "I want to." No one had said that before. Not without wanting something in return. Karchi didn't chase her. He walked beside her. When she ignored him, he nodded. When she cursed, he offered a smile. And when she finally asked why he wasn't like the others, he shrugged and said, "I was raised by a mother who bled through her healing. I know what silence sounds like when it wants to scream." And she cracked. Just a little. Weeks turned into months. They began to walk together after school, sit under the Iroko tree after evening prep, share chin-chin and groundnuts by the stream on Sundays. But intimacy, for Nena, was a double-edged sword. She wanted to be close. But when he touched her hand, her body panicked. When he leaned in to kiss her cheek, she recoiled. "I can't," she whispered one evening. "You don't want this mess." "I'm not afraid of mess," Karchi replied gently. "I'm afraid of you believing you can never be whole." She broke that day. Told him everything, the uncle, the silence, the addiction, the shame. Every word trembled like a leaf in a storm. She expected him to run. Or worse, to pity her. He didn't. He held her hand. Not to possess, but to anchor. "That wasn't your fault," he said. "You didn't invite evil. You survived it. Now let's help you live." After Nena told Karchi her truth, she expected the nightmares to stop. They didn't. She thought her cravings would vanish. They didn't. She thought being loved would erase the past. It didn't. But now, for the first time, she had someone to hold her hand through it. Karchi convinced her to talk to a counselor in the nearest town. Auntie Mojisola was kind but firm, a woman whose eyes carried storms and sunshine at the same time. The first session, Nena barely spoke. The second, she cried. By the fifth, she screamed. And Auntie Mojisola told her something she never forgot. "Your pain may have been planted by another, but the healing must be watered by you." The nights were still hard. Some evenings she'd message Karchi, "I want to do something stupid." He'd reply, "Come sit under the stars instead." And they would. In silence. In tears. In prayers. In long conversations that peeled her soul open gently, like palm kernels in a child's hand. But the journey wasn't smooth. She relapsed. More than once. One weekend, while Karchi traveled to visit his grandmother, she got drunk at a party, made out with someone who looked nothing like love, and came home feeling like mud. She didn't speak to Karchi for days. When he finally found her, she expected his disappointment. Instead, he sat beside her and said, "You're not back at square one. You're just tired. Rest. Then rise again." She wept. She hated that she was still broken, but loved that someone still stayed. Bit by bit, the patterns began to break. She started journaling. She sang again, softly at first, then boldly in church. She joined a youth group that talked about trauma and recovery. She even stood up to speak one day, her voice trembling like a leaf. "My name is Nena. I was hurt as a child. But I am not just what happened to me. I'm also what I'm becoming, healed, strong, and free." And for the first time in years, the village didn't look so gray. The world didn't feel like a trap. Her own body no longer felt like a battlefield. It was still hard. Triggers came uninvited. But she was learning to breathe through them. Kachi never asked her to be perfect. He asked her to be present. And slowly, she was. In Umuakpa, there's an old folktale about a river that lost its song. They said it once hummed sweet tunes that healed the sick and comforted children in the womb. But one day, after a deep drought and a flood of blood, it went silent. Years passed, and people forgot the river could sing. But one day, a young woman sat by its bank and wept. And the river, as if moved by her tears, began to hum again. Nena became that river. She had spent years drowning, aching, breaking. But now, she was rising. Singing. Pouring life into dry places. By 23, she had moved to the city, studied psychology, and joined an NGO focused on trauma and abuse recovery. Her story became a lifeline for many others, especially girls from villages who didn't have words for what had happened to them. She spoke in schools, churches, and youth centers. Not to flaunt her scars, but to show that healing was possible. "I used to think I was shame in human form," she would say. "But I'm learning that I'm light. Not because the darkness disappeared, but because I kept lighting candles in it." Back home, her mother eventually learned the truth. It came in waves: a phone call, a tearful visit, a long embrace under the same iroko tree where Nena once found her voice again. Ifema wept like a child. She blamed herself. But Nena held her gently. "You didn't fail me. You just didn't see. But you see me now, and that's enough." Okoli was later exposed and faced justice. But Nena didn't watch his trial. She was teaching a workshop that day, to girls who had also been touched too early, too wrongly. Her justice was their freedom. As for Kachi, he never left. He stayed when she shook. He stayed when she fell. And now, he stood by her as she stood tall. They weren't married yet. They were building something deeper first, not just romance, but restoration. One day, after a youth rally, Kachi asked, "Do you know what your name means to me?" She smiled. "Tell me." "It means, God brought her back." She laughed, not to hide pain this time, but from joy. Deep, belly joy. And somewhere in the background, the birds of Umuakpa sang again. And the river hummed its long-forgotten song. Dear Nena of the brown eyes and butterfly laughs. You were only 8. You wore your Sunday shoes on Saturdays and twirled in the mirror when no one watched. You didn't know the world could bleed before you learned to spell pain. You didn't ask for that night. Or the one after. Or the ones that followed. You didn't break. You bent. You survived. I know you blamed yourself. You thought maybe if you'd screamed louder, he would have stopped. Maybe if you hadn't worn the wrapper your mama tied too loosely. Maybe if you had told someone sooner. Maybe if you had stayed invisible. But child, you were never the cause. The evil came from him, not you. I wish I could hold you now. To sit beside you under that leaking roof, to wipe your tears with hands that now know what healing feels like. To tell you, you didn't ruin anything. You didn't destroy your worth. You didn't lose your beauty. You were wounded, yes. But you are not the wound. I wish you could see us now. We smile with all our teeth. We walk with a quiet power, not the loud kind that demands attention, but the kind that deserves it. We help girls like you, who cry in silence and laugh in fear, to find their voice, their strength, their song. We are a river again. And oh, little one, Kachi stayed. He saw our mess, but he never left. He loved us when we couldn't love ourselves. He waited, not for our perfection, but for our honesty. We still cry, sometimes. But not because we're broken, no. We cry because we remember, and still chose to live. We cry because God didn't let the fire consume us. We cry because the girl who once hid in the dark now dances in the light. So listen, Nena. You are not your trauma. You are not dirty. You are not shame. You are a garden that grew through stone. You are a light that returned after the longest night. You are a story that saved others. And to every parent, uncle, auntie, teacher, guardian reading this, see your children. Not just their grades or chores or smiles. See their silence. See their shadows. Ask questions. Create safe spaces. Believe them. Because had someone seen me sooner, the pain wouldn't have had so many nights to fester. But even in all this, I am not bitter. I am becoming. And I will spend my life turning ashes into altars. Pain into purpose. Trauma into testimony. To the child I once was. You didn't die there. You rose. And I am so proud of you. Forever your future. Nena.